Domain 4 covers food service systems and begins with a look at the menu. The menu determines everything: food, space, equipment, and the personnel needed. Menus may be categorized by the degree of choice offered to the client. The no-choice or non-selective menu serves those who are unable to or who have no desire to make choices. It permits more accurate forecasting and gives you a greater degree of control. Limited choice menus provide choices for some items. Menus with a choice, like the selective menu, better please your clientele. Note an example is the static menu, where the same items are offered every day. This type is used when your clients change daily, as in a restaurant. Single-use menus are for events or special functions. They are planned for service on a particular day and are often used, note, when clientele do not vary from day to day. Cycle menus are an example of a standing format. Menus are repeated in a designated sequence. They are often planned for 3 to 4 weeks and then repeated. Advantages include simplified purchasing, standardized preparation procedures, and a more constant and evenly distributed workload. The spoken menu is presented orally to the patient. Room service menus, similar to those seen in hotels, is another current trend. Patients call food service when they are hungry and order from a menu. Food is usually delivered within 30 to 45 minutes. Two-tiered service is used as hospitals compete for patients. More expensive items are available for those willing to pay extra for them. Table d'hôte offers a complete meal at a set price. A la carte offers items separately at separate prices. Du jour means menu of the day. The commercial segment of food service includes situations where the sale of food is the primary activity and a profit is desired. This includes restaurants, convenience stores, hotels, and sports events. The non-commercial or on-site food service provides food as a secondary activity for the business. Hospitals, schools, child care services, the military, and employee feeding operations are examples. Before writing the menu, certain factors have to be known. The first is knowing your clientele. Their nutritional needs should be analyzed and menus written according to standard guides. Also consider age and cultural backgrounds. Please note the traditions and customs of the cultures listed. Southeast Asians may consume few dairy products, so need non-dairy sources of calcium, such as tofu or fish paste. Kosher patients do not consume meat and dairy at the same meal, so would be interested in what is in mixed dishes, such as beef stroganoff, which has both meat and dairy. Chinese patients may be interested in yin and yang foods. The Seventh-day Adventist follows the ovo-lacto vegetarian plan and avoids caffeine. The physical facility, including equipment, directly influences meal planning. Space in the kitchen should provide for an adequate flow of traffic. Consider the distance between the point of preparation and the point of distribution, for the elapsed time is a determining factor in food quality. The menu should be determined prior to the selection of equipment. Note, if the kitchen floor space is too large, efficiency declines, as workers waste steps moving around. Plan the menu within the time and ability limitations of your workers. Consider budgetary restrictions, for food is a costly and variable expense and has to be subject to close control. Meal planning may be impacted by governmental regulations. Schools and long-term care facilities have set guidelines to follow. Laws also require that menus accurately describe the foods to be served. Truth in menu legislation has been enacted. Fresh food must be fresh, not frozen or canned. The Food Code requires that the person in charge of food service must be able to identify food allergens and associated symptoms. Aesthetic and external factors like current trends should be considered as well. Disaster menus are written for use if there is a power failure or a disruption in the water supply. Disaster menus are often planned to require minimal staffing for preparation and service. Hospitals may be required to have multiple days of food supplies on hand in case of disaster. Note, menu engineering focuses on both the popularity and the profitability of the items. The engineering model segments items into one of 4 categories based on its popularity relative to other items, the menu mix, and its contribution to profit, the contribution margin. The 4 categories of menu items are star, highly popular and highly profitable; dog, low popularity, low profitability; puzzle, high profitability, low popularity; and plow horse, high popularity, low profitability. In the example presented, the macaroni and cheese is highly profitable and popular. This star item should be promoted. The steak tips are very popular but not very profitable. Try a price increase to make this plow horse item more profitable. Beef stew is very profitable but not very popular. Consider whether this puzzle item should remain on the menu. The lentil soup is neither profitable nor popular. Consider eliminating this dog item from the menu. The popularity of menu items can be measured in several ways. Satisfaction surveys may use a hedonic scale, where foods are rated from like to dislike. Facial scales are used with children or when clients speak a different language. The frequency of acceptance method asks clients how often they would be willing to consume an item. You can also measure plate waste or have clients estimate their plate waste. Note, the popularity index is used to analyze sales and then predict the future sales of an item. It shows how popular items are compared to one another. Please note the formula used to determine the popularity index. Divide the total number of servings of all items in a category served that day into the number of servings of an individual item within that category. For example, divide the number of servings of all vegetables served at dinner into the number of green beans served at that dinner. Please look at the example provided. This finds that only 17% of vegetables served were green beans, so not a very popular item. Note, you can also use the popularity index to forecast or predict future sales of an item. For example, if you plan to serve 300 portions of vegetables next Friday, how many servings of carrots will you need? First, determine the popularity index of carrots on Friday. Then multiply that by the number of expected servings of all vegetables. You can now forecast that you will need 129 servings of carrots. Another way to evaluate client acceptance of the menu is to calculate the average check. Note, this is done by dividing the revenue, sales, or income from a meal by the number of customers served at that meal. Managers should know how much clients spend per meal. If the average check is lower than usual, perhaps different menu items or more promotion could lead to an increase in sales. Please be able to recognize the methods just reviewed as ways to evaluate customer satisfaction with the menu. Benchmarking refers to a process of comparing the satisfaction levels of your facility with those of similar operations. Comparison should be made against what is known as best in class. This helps identify areas on which to focus improvement efforts. Procurement is the function of acquiring material for production. A profit center is any department that is assigned both expense and revenue responsibilities. The manager must manage expenses while creating profit for the organization. A cost center is a department that is expected to manage expenses but not expected to generate profit. It helps other departments contribute to the creation of profit. The purchasing of food is guided by policies and procedures. The informal or open market method of buying is where you request quotations on items from one or two vendors by phone or in person. Note, it is used when you need a small amount quickly. Note, with the formal competitive bid buying process, you submit written specifications and quantity needs to vendors who then bid on the items by a specific date. The bids remain sealed until all bids are opened together. You place your order with the lowest bid because they are all bidding on exactly the same item. Another term used on the wholesale market is the futures contract. Here, goods are purchased at a specific price but shipped out to you at specified intervals. Prime vending is a formal agreement with a single vendor to supply the majority of products needed. Cost savings are achieved through high volume purchasing. Note the difference between centralized and group purchasing. Centralized purchasing is where personnel in one office does all purchasing for all departments within the organization. Group purchasing is where several organizations, like several hospitals, unite for joint purchasing. Note, the economic advantage is large volume discounts. Note, just-in-time purchasing purchases products as needed for production and immediate consumption by the customer without having to store and record it in the inventory. Receiving clerks accept the items and take them immediately to the area in which they will be used. Chopped lettuce would go directly to the salad unit. The purchase order is a written record of the items ordered and quantities needed. Standing orders eliminate the need to call in the order daily or weekly. We often have standing orders for items like bread and milk, for it is easy to forecast usage of these items. Free on board means products are delivered to a specific place with all transport charges paid. Written specifications must be carefully prepared to ensure the product you receive is the one you need. What is included in a specification is listed. The three types of specifications are technical, approved brand, and performance. Technical specs indicate quality through objective and impartial test results. This applies to graded food items like canned fruits and vegetables. Careful buyers will open cans of different brands for comparison before placing major orders. Note, this process of can cutting gives you first-hand information on appearance, taste, and flavor. Approved brand specs indicate quality by specifying a brand name or label like Heinz ketchup. Performance specs indicate quality through functioning characteristics of the product, like the number of dishes to be washed per minute or the pH level of detergents. When selecting a vendor, consider your past experiences with them and compare the services offered. The best time to evaluate a vendor is after they have delivered several orders. Maintaining a high standard of ethics is important for a buyer. They are entrusted with high buying power and cannot afford to compromise their position. The code of ethics they follow includes the items as listed. Note, avoiding collusion with vendors includes declining gifts and favors. Note, a food broker does not warehouse food, meaning they do not assume ownership. The broker makes the deal between the buyer and the seller. The quantities of food needed are based on the number of people to be served, the size portion to be given, and the amount of waste and shrinkage involved in preparation. Note the procedure for determining how much is needed. Determine the portion size. Multiply the portion size by the number to be served and convert to pounds. This is the edible portion required. To determine the amount to purchase raw, divide the edible portion by the percent yield, which is the amount provided by 1 pound of the item. Looking at the example, if the portion size is 4 ounces and we need 20 servings, we will need 80 ounces. Converted to pounds, this equals 5 pounds edible portion. If 1 pound of the raw item produces 8 ounces cooked, then the yield would be 50%. Divide the edible portion by the percent yield. You will need to purchase 10 pounds raw product to end up with 5 pounds edible. On your exam, if the question does not provide the yield, but gives you the waste, shrinkage, or loss during cooking, subtract that amount from 100% to get the yield. So if the shrinkage was 20%, the yield would be 80%. When determining how many servings can be obtained from an uncooked item, consider the percent lost during preparation. For example, if the preparation loss is 30% and the portion size is 5 ounces, how many servings can be obtained from 9 pounds raw product? First, subtract the percent that will be lost. Convert what remains to ounces and divide by the portion size. We will get 20 servable portions. The economic order quantity method is used to order staple or regularly stocked items. This attempts to find the quantity that minimizes purchase and inventory costs. The total annual cost of restocking an inventory product depends directly on the number of times it is ordered each year. To decrease these costs, orders should be placed as seldom as possible by ordering larger quantities. An example is presented. This shows that the most economic-sized order to place would be 32 cases. So order this item 32 cases at a time. One method of forecasting usage is the time series method, which is suitable for short-term forecasts. This assumes that purchases follow a trend over time. An example is the moving average model, which uniformly weighs past observations. That means each number is given the same weight or value in the calculation. Here we have the number of cases of peaches used in the past 3 months. To determine how many cases you will need for the next month, add the 3 figures together and divide by 3. This is a 3-month forecast. This method is called a moving average because as you move through the year, you include figures from different months. So if you were now to forecast for November, you would delete July's figure and include October's figure in the calculation. Note exponential smoothing uses software to forecast usage. This method gives more recent values more weight in the calculation, so it does not uniformly weigh past observations. Using the above example, that means that the software would pay more attention to what was used in September than in July. The causal methods of forecasting usage are based on an assumption that a relationship exists between the item being forecast and other factors like the selling price. This method is used for medium and long-term forecasts. The subjective models of forecasting usage are used when relevant data are scarce or when relationships between data do not persist over time. Here, you may rely on the opinions of others. Receiving areas should be as close to the delivery docks as possible with easy access to storage. They should contain thermometers, scales, can openers, and hand trucks. When goods are received, the delivery slip that accompanies the order is the invoice. It is prepared by the vendor and lists the items purchased with the unit price and total cost of each item. Note, this invoice is checked against the items received and the purchase order. The invoice method of receiving is to check the invoice to see if all items ordered were delivered. Then inspect the items, list them on the receiving report, sign the invoice, and store the items promptly. Note, the blind check receiving method involves giving the receiving clerk a blind invoice, listing the items coming in but omitting the quantities and other details. The clerk then must weigh, measure, or count the items and record them on a blind purchase order. The blind document is then compared with the original order. This forces the clerk to seriously check the order and not merely glance at it. This method takes longer and costs more money in labor. The documentation and records used by the receiver include the daily receiving report, a substitution invoice, and a request for credit. To prevent theft at the time products are received, the person who purchased the item should not be the person receiving them. There should be scheduled hours for receiving. Avoid busiest production times and avoid too many deliveries arriving at the same time. Products should move immediately from receiving to storage. Note, fresh fish should arrive below the danger zone. If there is any indication that frozen fish has been allowed to thaw, reject it. Note, storage needs are based on your menu. The amount of storage required depends upon the frequency of deliveries, the market form of the food purchased, and the variety of foods offered. Storage areas should be convenient to receiving and production areas. In dry storage, the room should be dark, cool, well ventilated, and clean, with a separate room for cleaning supplies. Note, temperatures in dry storage should be 50 to 70 degrees. Ventilation is an important factor in dry storage. Shelves should be far enough off the floor and away from the wall to permit a free flow of air. Circulation of air around bags and cartons aids in removing moisture. Note, a relative humidity of 50 to 60% should be maintained in dry storage. Note, perishable foods like fresh fruits and vegetables have a high water content and require the highest humidity, 85 to 90%. Refrigeration affects the quality and safety factors of perishable and processed foods. All potentially hazardous food should be below the danger zone. Frozen foods should be kept at 0 to -10 degrees. The inventory tells you when and how much to reorder. The perpetual inventory is updated each time an item is placed in or taken out of storage. This gives you a running record of the balance on hand. The physical inventory is an actual count of all goods on hand, usually done at the end of the month. This is counted as an asset on your balance sheet. Note, if a food service operation has a fixed order quantity system, the order point is determined in the following way. Multiply the average daily use of the item times its lead time, which is the number of days it takes after placing the order for it to be delivered. To this, add the safety stock, which is that small number of the item you want to have on hand just in case. Looking at the example given, when the supply of this item drops down to 22 cases, you need to reorder it. So this method determines the order point. With the par stock method, set a par level for each item. Then each time an order is placed, bring the stock up to that par level, regardless of the amount on hand. Food storage areas can be arranged to utilize the first-in, first-out method. This stock rotation is the process of rearranging the merchandise so the older containers are in front and are used first. This takes extra work, but eliminates the problem of stale merchandise. Another method of determining inventory levels is the mini-max stock method. Stock is allowed to deplete to the safety level before a new order is submitted. Establish a minimum and a maximum number to have on hand of each item. Goods are ordered when the minimum is reached and only in the amount needed to reach the maximum level. So note, the amount of the item ordered will be the same each time you place an order. In most food service operations, a small number of products account for the major portion of the inventory value. The inventory can be classified using the ABC system. Note, the relative importance of each inventory item is measured by how much the total value of purchases is for that item each year. This is its activity level. It is expected that 15 to 20% of the total number of items in stock make up 75 to 80% of the total annual value of purchases. These are classified as A items, also called vital or high-value items. At the other extreme, about 60 to 65% of the inventory items comprise only 5 to 10% of the value and are classified as C items with trivial or low value. All others fall into the B class with moderate or medium value. Note, the tightest possible controls are needed for the A items. These are the most expensive items. Keep them at a minimum number and watch over them carefully. Many hospitals classify meat as an A item. There are several ways to determine the value of an inventory. The actual purchase price method is based on the actual purchase price for each item. The weighted average purchase price method is more time-consuming and is based on the average price paid for a product over a period of time. Note, in the first-in, first-out method, the last price paid for the product is multiplied times the number of units. Note, this tends to price the inventory high. In the last-in, first-out method, use the oldest price paid for each item. This method usually underestimates the value of the current inventory. It uses the price of the item held the longest in inventory. You might use this method if you pay taxes on your inventory. Merchandise should be removed from the storeroom only on a written order. Large institutions may use a central ingredient room, which is, note, a quality control procedure. All ingredients for menus that day are weighed and measured by one person. Only those items are brought into the kitchen. This eliminates the need to go in and out of the storeroom throughout the day. It saves food costs and helps cooks follow standardized recipes. Next, we will look at some principles of food preparation. Foods are dispersion systems, which are mixtures of solids, liquids, and gases. They are classified according to the state of matter in each phase of the dispersion. An example is mayonnaise, which is a liquid dispersed within a liquid forming an emulsion. Dispersions are also classified on the basis of the size of the dispersed particles. You can change the degree of dispersion by heating or beating the product. The interface is the line that forms between two immiscible liquids. An example of the importance of acidity in foods is found in vegetables. Vegetables are only slightly acidic. That makes it necessary to can them at temperatures higher than 212 to destroy botulism. Note, a pressure cooker which reaches higher temperatures must be used to safely can low-acid vegetables. Beets are sometimes pickled with vinegar. This addition of acid lowers the pH, and now they can be canned in boiling water. When green vegetables are canned or overcooked, they may lose their attractive green color. As cells are disrupted during heating, hydrogen ions are released. When these ions come into contact with the magnesium in the chlorophyll, the magnesium is pulled out. Note the molecule is now pheophytin and absorbs light differently, giving off an olive green color. To prevent this, cook the vegetables for a short time. Leaving the lid off for the first few minutes of boiling allows some of the volatile acids to escape. If baking soda is added to the green vegetables, they will turn a bright green. Note, this alkaline reaction creates chlorophyllin. The alkaline pH will cause them to be mushy. Also, water-soluble vitamins are lost in an alkaline solution. So the best way to produce good quality vegetables is to cook and serve quickly. Another example of the importance of acidity in foods is in angel food cake. Note the cream of tartar produces the acidic pH. This maintains the white color of the cake by preventing the Maillard browning reaction. So an acid prevents browning. The acid also contributes to the large volume and tender crumb. So what we know of as angel food cake, that very white, rather large, tender crumbed product, is the result of an acidic reaction. Enzymes in foods act as catalysts to facilitate chemical reactions. They must be carefully controlled to maintain food quality. Note enzymes are proteins, so are affected by the pH and temperature of the product. Enzymes play a role in the ripening of fruit. Starch is changed to sugar and the tissues soften. The browning of cut surfaces of fresh fruit is a result of enzymatic oxidation. An acid like lemon juice will lower the pH and inhibit this activity. You might have seen a cook soaking freshly cut pieces of apple or banana in a citric solution like lemon or orange juice. Vegetables are blanched before freezing in order to destroy enzyme action that may cause flavor or texture changes during storage. Blanching is the process of immersing the item in boiling water, then cold water. Browning occurs by enzymatic and non-enzymatic methods. When sugar is heated to very high temperatures, it caramelizes and produces brown-colored products. This is the Maillard reaction. The initial step is a combination of a reducing sugar and an amino acid. This reaction is affected by the pH of the foods involved. Note, an increase in pH, which is an increase in alkalinity, causes browning to occur more rapidly. An acid prevents browning. An alkaline reaction encourages browning. Heat in cooking is transferred by conduction, convection, induction, or radiation. Conducted heat moves from one particle to another by contact. An example of conducted heat is meat being kept warm on a dish sitting on a heated pellet. The heat moves from the pellet to the dish to the meat because surfaces are in contact with each other. Convection heating occurs by physically moving heated air from one place to another. A fan built into the back wall of the oven moves the hot air around. Induction is the use of electrical magnetic fields to excite the molecules of metal cooking surfaces. The burner has no open flame and the burner surface does not get hot. Molecules in the pan are activated, which produces the heat to cook the food. Radiated heat comes from the infrared waves of a glowing heat source, like an electrical element or charcoal or a gas flame. Microwaves are also radiated energy. The waves cause friction in the food called kinetic action, which develops the heat. Microwave radiation affects only water molecules, so a waterless material will not become hot. Most microwaves penetrate only 2 inches into food, and heat is transferred to the center of large masses of food by conduction. Note, standing time refers to the subsequent distribution of heat by conduction when the magnetron is turned off. In food service, microwaves are used primarily for heating prepared foods for service and on-demand patient feeding. Note, a disadvantage with microwave cooking is that it produces uneven heating. That is why a baby's bottle should not be warmed in the microwave oven. Note, steak cooking on a grill or meat braising in a steam-jacketed kettle use both conduction and radiation forms of heating. Engineered foods are composed of a variety of ingredients modified to simulate a particular product. These products have a long shelf life. Meat analogs are made of soy protein. They are about 50% protein, and most have no saturated fat. Seafood analogs are composed of soy blended with fish. Examples of vegetable blends are Incaparina and CSM. These are used to feed people in underdeveloped countries. CSM stands for the first 3 ingredients in the mixture: corn, soy, and milk. The rapid spoilage of most foods can be attributed to the growth of microorganisms and the action of enzymes present in the food. The microorganisms that are most important in foods are molds, yeasts, and bacteria. Molds grow best in warm, damp, dark places on acid, neutral, or sweet foods. They don't usually produce harmful substances. Yeasts need water, an energy source like sugar, and grow best in an acid in oxygen. They are also destroyed by boiling. Note, bacteria require abundant moisture and grow best on neutral foods. So the key ingredients for bacterial growth are moist and neutral. Note the danger zone for the growth of bacteria. Enzymes produce both desirable and undesirable effects on foods. They are rendered inactive at the boiling point of water. Foods can be kept for an extended time only if these microorganisms are kept under control. Perishable foods should be kept in the refrigerator. Freezing preserves the nutritive value as well as physical characteristics. Note, thaw food in the refrigerator. If this is not an option, the next best method is under running cold water. If you thaw food in the microwave, it must be cooked immediately. Dried foods keep well because the water content is so low that microorganisms can't grow. Canned foods last up to 1 year. Note the additive used in canned vegetables that acts as a humectant is a calcium compound. This retains moisture and increases firmness. Irradiation is another means of preserving food. To prevent off flavors from developing in meat, irradiate the meat frozen. It exposes foods to gamma rays or radiant energy to reduce harmful bacteria. It kills most harmful bacteria in foods other than milk. Chemical preservatives like BHA and BHT are used as antioxidants. And sugar and salt are good preservatives because they make the water in the food unavailable for bacterial growth. This domain continues on the next CD.